family responsibilities. It was just too hard. But then about 5 years ago, I kind of got excited about it again and said to my wife, you know, this is something I want to do. Some guys have golf, some guys go and play sports, some guys go out to bars. This is what I'd like to do with my free time. I'd like to do something in the community, something that helps me, I like to say, get my geek on. Be able to have something I'm really proud of, go out there in the community and do something new. So about 5 years ago, I got started with the Empire City Garrison. I had contacted some of the guys and met them here at ICON in my outfit that I had put together myself through different sources on the internet. And just showed up in costume, and they basically looked at it and said, you're in. And that's how I started. And I've been doing it ever since. I do anywhere between 20 and 30 events a year. Some people do more, some people do less. But I'm very committed to this organization. I think it's a great way to help the community. It's a great way to make friends and meet different people that you normally probably wouldn't have even met. I mean, just about every guy in this room here, you know, I've spent a lot of time with, and we've gotten to know each other, and we actually hang out sometimes outside of the 501st, but just whenever you go to a 501st or Rebel Legion event, you already have something in common. You already have a love of Star Wars, you have a love of an attention to detail, trying to get your costume as movie accurate as possible. And it's always a good starting point for a friendship, just to meet a lot of nice people that also are very socially conscious and want to do this for a good reason. So it's been a great experience for me over the past 5 years. Rachel, can I throw it to you for a second? Rachel's one of our newest members. She joined about a year ago. And you started with your X-Wing
I started with this pilot costume that I'm wearing right now. I put it together the same way, throwing together things on the internet. I have not, in fact, been coming to ICON for 10 years. It was more of a 10-year love of Star Wars since childhood type thing. And now I'm a member of both Legions. I've got the Sand Trooper armor that I just finished up last month. I was in that earlier today, the Short Trooper. Yes?
Yeah, aren't you a little short for the Stormtrooper?
You hear that a lot. It gets really old.
I love standing next to it though, because I look like 10 feet tall.
Oh, it's great. It's great. I follow Vader around. So if any of you guys have questions about how we put the costumes together, or what it's like being a dual member, since I'm a member of both Legions.
Yeah, I'm curious if you guys mostly make your costumes or buy them.
Yeah, there's different people in the group that are like experts at certain things. For instance, right here we have King Jawa Ian, who's an expert at making Tusken Raider masks. This is some of his work. After it's all finished, he's actually showing the process here of what he does to make them. There's different artisans who are in love with Star Wars, love trying to make something super accurate. And when they are good at it, they usually do something called a run. They'll go on the boards and say, hey, listen, look, I know how to make this. I know how to make a really good copy of this. I'm going to make them, and you know, anybody who wants it, just sign up, and people will try to get the run of this certain item. For instance, what Rachel's wearing, there's a person on the boards named Darth Hare on the Rebel Legion boards who makes these helmets, and he painted up that helmet for her, and I had the molds for that helmet. He also made her chest piece. And there's another guy, are yours Elvis Troopers?
Yeah.
There's another guy who calls himself Elvis Trooper, who does all the metal parts. So there's various makers who specialize sometimes in one single little part, one little particular item. And once you get involved in the club, even if you just start off with a basic costume like a Jedi that you got that does meet our stringent specifications, or an Imperial officer, you can get involved and then like upgrade to a better costume once you get involved and start meeting the people. Once you get in the club, it's a hell of a lot easier to source these different parts than it is if you're kind of an outsider. Once you get in, you get like addicted to it. You're like, I gotta get that, oh my god. I gotta get the Boba Fett, oh my god. And you can find people who make all the different parts. Tom Peterson here started as a Jedi, and he's actually been working on a Jango Fett. And he can tell you how much easier it is. Once you're in, you can find all the people who make the different parts.
There's a lot of people that offer a lot of support for getting your costume together, getting it movie accurate. I found out that since I started this, and I officially started this year, so I haven't been with the Rebel Legion for a year yet. But I found that I enjoy doing a lot of the painting, the leathering. So now I'm working on a Jango Fett right now, but I'm getting some of the pieces sent to me. Some of the pieces, you know, some people didn't want anymore, and you might sell it a little bit affordably than trying to get stuff over eBay or anything else. So I got some of those pieces. Some of the pieces I'm making myself, and I'm giving it a shot. And if I make it and it turns out pretty good, then that's great. If not, then, you know, I can always go back to going to, you know, one of the more professionals and just purchasing it off of that. But I found out I have a real love to get kind of crafty and paint some of the stuff, which I didn't know I had before. Now I've got tons of paint in my garage, and, you know, I'm always painting something now.
Yeah, and you should keep in mind too, the other thing we strive for in both clubs is accuracy. We have very stringent guidelines as to your costume has to have certain items at a certain level to even be allowed in. There is a Stormtrooper costume you might have seen online that's called the Stormtrooper Extreme or Deluxe Edition costume that's by Rubies, and it's like $1,000. That's not even close to meeting any of the standards within the 501st. There's no even way to modify it to make it even close to movie accurate. So once you get in the club, or if you try some of the other websites, some of you might have my white card, that's whitearmor.net. There's another, I'll just give you that website too, if you can write that in the board. Whitearmor.net. Each basic costume has a separate detachment. They call it a detachment within the club with its own board. And you don't have to be a member of the 501st. You can just join it and find out information about a specific costume. Whitearmor.net is the one specifically for Stormtroopers. And from that website, you can find out where do I get a good helmet, where do I get good armor, how do I hook up the armor together? Because when you get the armor, you get a bunch of plastic pieces in a box. And you have to figure out how to strap it properly so it sits on your body properly, so you can move around in it, where to glue on the different pieces, how to attach the different pieces. There's a lot of work that goes into, and there's almost a little bit of an art with how to get this exactly the way to fit your body type and fit all the pieces together.
Especially if you're really short like me.
You got to do a lot of cutting and adjusting and different modifications. But each of the main costumes has a detachment. There's also the dentedhelmet.net.
Dented helmet for people who are interested in building a Jango Fett or a Boba Fett. It's the main resource for that. You find though people are extremely helpful. I didn't get in. It took me what at least three submissions.
Yeah, to get in the Rebel Legion.
To get into the Rebel Legion with a Jedi costume, a generic Jedi costume. But everybody was so helpful, even though they rejected me. They said, okay, here's the reason why, and they assigned someone to me to help me out and answer any questions that I might have. So they were extremely helpful. And it was only little minor details, clip here, boot there, whatever it was. They were very helpful, very accommodating.
And Lou over here, who's in our Boba Fett outfit, is our costume person for the ECG. So he's the person that you submit your pictures to, and he'd say, you're missing this, 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 and this. What I always suggest to anybody, if you're interested in getting involved with the group, if you're interested in starting out in the costume, go to the 501st website, find out the costume that you really want to try to go for. Find the detachment for that costume and sign up for that board. Start finding out where you can get the different pieces, how much it's going to cost, because some outfits like this can run anywhere from $1,000 to $1,500. A Boba Fett can be $3,000 to $5,000. So you got to be realistic if you're going to just start out. That some costumes are far more expensive than others. And how much was yours, Ron?
At the moment, I'm at 6,000.
So he's at 6,000, and because he's got the real leather outfit, he's got the real cape, he's got a very accurate helmet and chest box. And again, these are all makers from the 501st who can direct you to where to get these particular parts. And there's a guy in Argentina or something who makes the cape.
The cape and circle came from Argentina. Wool, mostly wool.
Then you have to lie to your wife when the
I have a separate credit card just for the 500.
Yeah.
My wife doesn't know anything about it.
sheet metal helmet. Oh yeah, no, that was $20.
Some of the prices do seem daunting. Once you're on the boards, you'll find some people who will go through a costume and say, listen, I don't want it anymore. And before they sell it off on eBay, they'll offer it up to the people within the 501st or within the Rebel Legion. Because there is a board there where people are, having a costume or prop sale. If you're looking to buy something, you can always post, looking to buy, and list what you're looking to buy. Somebody might have an extra one that they're not using, and they'll be able to offer it up to you. So even though the prices can be very daunting, you can also do it very affordably. I'm keeping a running tab of how much I intend to spend on my Jango Fett costume, which is over $3,000. And right now, I'm $1,000 ahead of the game, just from going through the boards. I keep a running tally of how much everything priced out, how much it costs, and how much I've actually spent. So I'm building as I'm going along. I don't have to buy everything right now. I'm a patient man. I already got a costume. But it's nice that there are people out there that if you're looking to get something, they'll say, oh, you know what, I got an extra one here. So.
For that matter, a lot of the time, the more you do yourself from basic supplies, the cheaper it can be. Like people sell pre-made jumpsuits with like pockets in the correct places. But if you want to sew your own, like I did, it ends up being a lot less pricey, which is great for those of us who are younger and less established in our careers and have a slightly lower income.
And things like, you could go for like Jedi robes. There's a lot of pre-made Halloween costume, what do you call those?
Patterns.
Patterns.
Patterns, yes.
You could always tweak a pattern that's already made, like a McCall's. has a wizard robe and wizard tunic pattern. So you buy that for $3, and then you buy $50 worth of fabric, and whammo, stitch to stitch, you have a Jedi.
If you have a nice grandmother or mom that can sew it.
Yeah.
Are there any resources for making costumes?
What was that?
Like online resources for making?
Well, you-
Oh, everywhere.
The white armor and dental helmet are for the bad guy costumes. There's also a bunch of resources for the Rebel Legion. Within the Rebel Legion board is actually open even if you're not a member. You can get in there and start asking around and asking for some help with different stuff. Even if you're not doing, I mean, we've had people ask us who weren't even doing, I think you were asking me earlier, people who weren't even doing Star Wars costumes who might just want some tips on how do I put on armor? How do I put this on? How do I strap it together? I'm lost, I don't know what to do. Well, you might want to look in there and just see what some of the guys have some ideas on how to do that.
Because I know I was on the boards a year before I even put together a costume. And it's great because you get to like really chit-chat with everyone. I ran down to Celebration 5, and honestly someone's like, what's the group like? I'm like, it's like a high school reunion for a group you've never been to. It's like you've never been to school, but everyone knows who you are after you've been on the boards. You know, I'm walking down like, hey Magnus, how's it going? Hey, I don't know who you are, but nice meeting you. You get to know everyone in the community.
Yeah, and they usually know you by your username rather than your
Exactly.
real name. They're
It's like a bunch of pirates,
so-and-so,
you know.
You're Cure Mode, you're Magnus, you're... Yeah, so keep in mind, it's very online, it's a very connected community. Get involved. If you want to find out about it, even if you're just curious, get on the rebellegion.com, get on the 501st.com, get into the boards and just start asking questions. And again, the detachments for the 501st has such specific requirements that the detachments are your best bet to really get started with a specific costume. Try to hone in on the one you want, what your budget's going to be, and see if it's realistic for what you're looking to spend. And again, you really have to have the drive. You have to, you don't want to make a costume just to make a costume. If I wanted to make this costume just to make it, it would be sitting on my attic on a mannequin. What the heck's the point of that? If you're going to spend that kind of money, you really have to have a passion for it. You have to be willing to use it in public. Not be embarrassed about it, just go out there and throw yourself out there because you wouldn't believe the love you get from these kids and these adults who love Star Wars at these different events. It's a real showstopper at these different events, and people really appreciate you coming to these events because it helps spread the word about these charities. People will say, oh, I saw Stormtroopers at the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation walk or at the Special Olympics polar plunge. And it really does help these different organizations in the community.
For those of you that might own your own business, since my company, we donate to charity, we donate money to charity, but it's nice to also donate your time, and that's the big reward for me. Even though that, at the end of the year, it's nice to see how much money you've actually given back, but to give back the time and be face to face with the kids that you're positively affecting, and it's great because it's also being like a star for a day. It's like being a movie star just for one day. Where, one event, I couldn't walk 5 feet without people asking for autographs, for photographs, or what it's like. And it's nice to step into those shoes every now and then. It's not something that I would care to live every single day of my life, but for one day to feel like an absolute movie star, and I'm sure everybody else here will agree, that, it's a good feeling. It's a good feeling to give back, and it's a pretty good feeling to, have everybody want to stand next to you and get their picture taken.
Yeah, just some exciting events we've done lately that Tom was involved with. We did Ripley's Believe It or Not Museum in Manhattan, which was an absolute madhouse for about 3 or 4 hours of just people taking pictures and hassling us, trying to get pictures with us, trying to have us sign autographs. It was hilarious. And we also did the Intrepid just about 2 weeks ago. And that was, again, massive amounts of people that just love to have you there and love to take pictures with you and want, I want my kid to take a picture with you, I want your picture. It really is a kind of a high, it really is. You really get excited, you really are like, wow, this is incredible. And when you think about what you're doing it for, it just really gives you that satisfaction. You just really can't get anything else. I mean, it's really a great feeling, it's almost indescribable. Just to give you a heads up, I know a lot of you folks are probably from the island. We're also going to be doing the Cradle of Aviation Museum on June 16th this year. So if you want to see us in mass, I mean, we had a pretty good turnout here today at ICON. We've had about a dozen or so people here today. At the Cradle of Aviation, if it's anything like last year, we're going to have between 30 and 40 people. We actually have other garrisons in surrounding areas. We have a garrison in Pennsylvania called Garrison Carita. We have a garrison in New Jersey and parts of PA called the Northeast Remnant. We have a Connecticut garrison, and we have another garrison way up in upstate New York called Garrison Excelsior. We had guys from all those garrisons come down because it was a big, fun event. We could all come down, all gather, and really put on a great show for the people there and for the museum, which is a nonprofit museum on the island. And they told us that their attendance had tripled or quadrupled that day because they had advertised it heavily. They said the Empire Strikes the Cradle, and they had a huge amount of interest and a huge amount of people come by. And it was great to have, to be able to have everybody get together like that, and to have all the positive exposure for the museum itself that day. So, go ahead.
It's nice also to have that sense of community, because when we did the Ripley's, believe it or not, we actually had a 501st member from another country. Where was he from?
Sweden.
Sweden. Yeah,
He came all the way from Sweden. He happened to be
he
coming that
come to
weekend.
America and saw that there was a listing for a troop event, so he bought one of his costumes with him, and he was able. It was nice to meet him, and he got to make a whole set of new friends here in America.
And again, this is a guy from Sweden. We could strike up a conversation with him. He was like one of the guys within 10 minutes, because we're all kind of similar mindsets. We're all
crazy.
We're different ages. I mean, I think you're our youngest member right now.
Probably, yeah.
But we have guys, older guys like me. I'm actually 41.
He's
And-
me too.
Yeah, he's
Me too. I'm
him too.
depending on the oldest, right?
So it's the age range, anybody who's been affected by Star Wars, I mean, it's a cross-generational thing. I'm probably, the older guys who saw it when it first came out. It stuck with me my whole life. But there's a whole new younger generation coming up that really appreciate it and really like it. And whether you do a Rebel costume or a 501st costume, the kids know who you are. They've seen the movies, they've seen the shows, they've seen the cartoons. The only thing that does get us annoyed sometimes is we have kids coming up to us in the old TKs calling us clones and saying, "Oh, I want to get a picture with the clone trooper." And we're like,
It's the generation.
what did I spend $1,500 on this one?
The worst is I was out on Halloween, I was walking, and I spent a half an hour on the train ride back to Brooklyn with this annoying child yanking on my stuff, calling me a Power Ranger.
I was Mace Windu.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With a purple blade.
Yeah.
So you can't blame the kids. We try to say, "Okay, take a breath. They're just kids. They don't know. They don't know any better." But that can be frustrating. When you spend so much money in your costume, they call you a robot, a Power Ranger. But
You have to blame the parents on that one.
yeah.
What are they teaching kids these days?
But again, there's an instant recognizability among anybody you go to, any event you go to, that they go Star Wars. They see you and they just know Star Wars. And it's a real great experience for the people that come to these events to see us there, and they really get really excited about it. Sometimes a little too excited, which is why it's good sometimes to have some handlers around, because sometimes we can get crowded. Candace here is being our handler today, trying to help us out, trying to get us through the crowds. And that's a real asset too. If a lot of the girlfriends, wives, and other people in the club do that. And Candace is also a member who was just chose to help us out today, so we really appreciate the support. We actually just filled out some Squire guidelines to give people some information on how to help Squire with different events. So we're hoping that'll take off and help give some guidance to the people that help us out at different events. Anybody have any other specific questions? Yes?
Do you get overheated?
You can actually. The Stormtrooper can go both ways. In the summer, sometimes it gets a little hot. We usually put fans in. I'll show you my helmet here. Some guys use very complicated fan systems. I actually just use 2 of these off mosquito repellent things that I've Velcroed in there. I found that was a really elegant, little, small, easy solution. They took out all the chemical stuff and everything, but that actually does work very well. Some guys have very complicated dual, like what they call swirl fan systems. That can help you a lot. And actually, all I'm wearing in here is like a dive suit. It's very thin. So in the summer, it usually breathes pretty well, and the wind goes through. Actually, in the winter, it can be the worst. We did a polar plunge last year where it was like 25 degrees, and we were freezing our eyes off. Dave was with me. This is Dave here in the Stormtrooper outfit. And even with underoos on and sweats under here, we were freezing because the wind just blows right under you. Now, on the opposite end of that scale, you have Tuscans and Vaders like this that have the leather outfits that can be hot as heck. I mean, you could just die. We did an event last summer for kids with cancer up in upstate New York in Mayapack called Giant Kids. And poor Vader here was waiting for the bucket to take him up for the fire engine, and he almost passed out. He almost passed out because it was like 97 degrees, humid, hot, with the sun beating down on that black outfit. It can be torturous. But I mean, a lot of the guys here, we kind of build ourselves up. We kind of prepare for it. We kind of try to stick it through if it is a very challenging event like that. But again, we're very concerned with safety. We usually have a helmet on rule, except for cons and things like this, where we talk to people about the club. But there is a way for that. If you're ever in distress or ever feel like you're dehydrated or feel like you're going to pass out, you take the helmet off right away. That goes out the window.
Frustrating?
Yeah, so
One thing, you can never tell when a stormtrooper is about to pass out.
until they start going like this
Yes.
and fall over. There was actually, I don't know if any of you have the Blu-ray Star Wars Blu-rays. There's a documentary on the supplemental disc called Star Warriors. That's about the Rose Parade that the 501st did in 2007 when Lucas put out a call to all the 501st people across the country and across the world and said, we'd like you to come to the Rose Parade. And he shows that it was 200 people that came and flew into California, Pasadena, to do the Rose Parade. There was an incident right at the end of the parade in the documentary. You see one of the stormtroopers just completely falls over. He just had done it, he did it, and it just collapsed. And they had paramedics and everything. It's a rare occurrence, but you got to be mindful of your own body. And if you start getting lightheaded, you got to take a break, go into the shade, and try to take off your helmet, take a breath, and some water.
Jedi costumes are nice because this is actually extremely warm. Like in the winter when we're out on the deck, it was, it's fine, but you can always just remove some layers and all of a sudden, remove the cloak. I still got the costume on, but I'm still a little bit cooler.
Same with this one. Easy to layer underneath.
You can either wear nothing, like I wore that exact outfit to...
Well, not nothing.
Well, I was wearing underwear. You can wear this like in the winter. I wore it right over my jeans and my shirt and everything. I just wore it right over it. I did an event last year with another one of our sister Garrisons, the Northeast Remnant, that we did at Great Adventure. And I wore that exact outfit with just underwear on under it. And it was actually, pretty tolerable, even in like 90-degree heat out in walking through the Six Flags Great Adventure. And there was also another great event for cancer. It's called Walk in the Park, where they try to raise money for cancer awareness. And it was great because we actually got on the cover of one of the magazines, one of the local New Jersey local magazines, for what we did at this thing. So because they're taking a picture and people see a big stormtrooper and a big biker scout and Darth Vader on the cover of a magazine, it does highlight that organization. They're saying, "Oh my God, stormtrooper! Oh, what is this organization? Walk in the Park. It's for cancer research." It's a very good way to try to get the word out about these different organizations while having fun at the same time. Does anybody have any other specific questions? Got anything?
Did you tell them about how some of the other events that we've done, like the Weird Al concert?
We do sometimes get asked to do promotional events, like we do Weird Al Yankovic whenever he comes into town. He actually usually asks for a couple of stormtroopers and Darth Vader to come on stage when he does his set of Star Wars songs. I've done it 3 times. You did it once with me at the Paramount Theater out in Huntington. And he is the greatest guy. I mean, last time I brought my whole family. I have my 2 girls who are 11 now, and my wife, and they got to meet him afterwards, and he was so gracious to us. He's been a real friend of our organization because he's also a super geek. He heard about what we do, and he's like, guys, you gotta come to my concerts. This would be great. And we've partnered with him. We've done a lot of his concerts. We also did a show in November for a guy named Charles Ross, who does the one-man Star Wars show. Has anybody heard of that?
Yeah.
Yeah, he is hilarious. He does all 3 Star Wars movies in about an hour on stage, and he acts all the parts. He does Princess Leia, he does Han Solo, he does everything. He abbreviates all 3 movies into about an hour to 90 minutes. He had invited us down to his show in Manhattan, where we did just sit out in front to try to gather interest for his show, and then he let us come see the show for free afterwards. And he's also an honorary member of the 501st. He's an incredibly nice guy who's an ultimate super Star Wars fan. We're also friendly with a lot of the actors. A lot of the actors really like to have us escort them to their different things at cons. And a lot of them are also what we call honorary members, where we present them with a plaque and we say that you're an honorary member of the 501st. I was lucky enough, about a year and a half ago, there's a show on the Science Channel called Sci-Fi Science with Michio Kaku. We had gotten involved with that show through Lucas had requested, they want some sci-fi geeks and people on the show. And I was able to do all 20 or so episodes of that show. The first season, I did it out of costume with just our logos and stuff on it. And the second season, they said, we'd like you to come in your whole outfit if you could. And we got the clearance from Lucas, and I was on like every episode of the show as a stormtrooper. I was actually able to present Michio Kaku for letting us do that, and all the stuff he had done for our group. I presented him with an award, which was a huge thing. To be able to give somebody who's a world-renowned physicist like that, an honorary membership to our club. So that's another thing we do. We reach out to a lot of these people who have any connection with Star Wars, who have done something good for the 501st or the Star Wars community, and we try to honor them within the club. We also, as you can see, the trading cards. within the club, for both the Rebel Legion and the 501st, we have runs of cards, and a lot of guys try to get all their costumes and get the cards made up, which we just give out for free at different cons and different charity events. So that's another fun thing that we do within the club. And you can see from those cards, they're really professionally done. And all that time is donated by very talented artists within the club who donate their time to make these up for us. So we really appreciate their support. And it's great to have access to that kind of talent to people that are really obsessed with Star Wars, just like we are, and are willing to donate their time in that way to help the organization. Any other specific questions anybody can think of?
Well, I have to say, it's very interesting about the detail that goes into a costume. Like, you look at Vader over there, and if you go, I'm going to do a Vader costume, well, there's 3 different types of Vader. There's, well, 5. Well, you have A New Hope, you have the movie, different movies. Each movie has a different aspect to the costume. Some have squiggly little lines, others have wordings. The switches are different, you know, so when you get into this group, you don't get, like, overwhelmed. Because there's a lot of little different details that you wouldn't notice unless you were actually holding the costumes in front and really looked at it. So the nice thing with the organization is that you could really tap someone and go, you know, I'm looking to do this costume. What details do I really have to look for?
Yeah, if you say I want to be Boba Fett, the first thing Lou's probably going to ask you, okay, which one? Because there's differences between Empire Strikes Back, there's differences between Return of the Jedi one that you may not have noticed, but we noticed. Everybody in, you know, we're very detail oriented when it comes down to looking at the costumes and what was involved in putting those costumes together. You know, a small example was, you think it'd be easy just to put on boots and be Jango Fett, but no, they have to be a certain sole of boot. And the company that made the original one was Kenneth Cole. It was a Kenneth Cole Pit Crew boot, which is no longer available because all us geeks bought them all up. And there's only one other Kenneth Cole, and there is another company that uses that same sole that you have to get. I have to get the other company that uses the same sole. You know, but with being on the board, you see that people, somebody had all the different sizes of the Kenneth Cole Pit Crew boots. Had other people in the 501st and the Rebel Legion send their boots in, and he made molds. And now he's hand making. He's like he's a shoemaker, you know, which he makes shoes, and he's building them all for everybody else who wants to be a Jango Fett, which is very nice.
There's a website too for these white boots I'm wearing with the U shape on them. They're called TK boots, and there's actually a company called TKBoots.com that make these particular boots that they stopped manufacturing in like 1979 because they're like disco boots. They're like disco, you know, white boots to wear with a white suit. And there's people that have remanufactured them. They call them totally kicking boots, but everybody knows that they're TK Stormtrooper boots.
And even with the Jedi, it's very different because you have Old Republic and New Republic. And each side of the Jedi, you have different elements. Like, for example, a little clip like this, well, I have to be New Republic. While you might have, are you using a Cobra Tech?
Yeah, I had to get, this was what I had to get for my final approval was getting this little $3 item. That was the last thing I was missing because of the era Jedi I was. Whereas my lightsaber actually takes a Cover Tech clip, which is I have here, and I'm just wearing it for ease to hang it up. But this is meant for a D-ring lightsaber, so you can easily hook the D-ring. It's interesting to really find out everything that goes in because all of a sudden you're learning a lot more about the movies too than you ever thought you'd ever know.
Even with color scheme, it's very different. You know, you have a little bit more variety in the New Republic as opposed to Old Republic, which you're just looking at the oatmeals, except for, say, an Anakin, which is slightly different. But if you look at the episodes 1, 2, and 3, very oatmeal, very light browns, and in the New Republic, it's a lot more out of the books and expanded universe comics.
Yeah, and also keep in mind that the people who judge the costumes and the people who give you feedback on the costumes, they're not out to get you or not get you in the club. They're really trying to help you because we do have a certain level of standard that we try to adhere to, so that when we come to an event, we're not a joke. We're not, this guy looks ridiculous, or I don't know what this guy even is. You have to conform to certain standards, and the people that give you feedback are really just trying to help you conform to those standards, just to help your costume be better.
They really want to see you succeed and come on board. That's why they assign somebody. If you're not quite, you don't have everything quite right, they'll say, you know, okay, here's a guy, this is your go-to guy. He's going to help you out with, you know, if you're missing an item, where to find it, where to get it, how to perfect it, how to actually assemble it correctly. If you just have something assembled wrong, and you're on your own and you don't have somebody else to turn to, well, you can actually turn to somebody on the board. You have like a, you have a little helper there. You have a big brother or big sister.
Any other questions, guys? Anything specific?
What is like the range in terms of like, you were talking about New and Old Republic, like what is the range of, I guess, the canon that you're stuck, that you're limiting yourselves to? Like,
right now, as it stands, there has to be some sort of visual reference that it can go by. Yeah,
Three.
He's putting up 3.
Yeah, 3 photo references.
Yeah, 3, yeah. So if you're making a generic Jedi versus a specific Jedi, like Kit Fisto or you know, Koploon, Ki-Adi-Mundi, one of those Jedis, obviously they're going to be very detailed on that. Whereas if you're doing a generic Jedi, you just have to make sure that, you know, everything fits within guidelines, that your boot has the proper spats, that
You're not bright pink.
you have the right colors, you have the right types of material that you're using. You know, generally they're very good at, you know, labeling out the standards so you know what you need to get. Like now, I learned my lesson when putting this costume together. Now when I'm building my Jango Fett costume, I'm running everything by all the experts, not just you know, Lou over here who knows them all, but there are other people across the United States that, you know, rate the Jangos that, you know, actually come into the 501st. And, you know, they make, you know, recommendations like, it's weathered a little bit too much, take some of the weathering off, you know, and that type of thing. You know, so it's very helpful. But
And the group is very organic. For example, you were thinking like canon groups. You have Old Republic. Well, then you have like video game Old Republic, and you have different groupings there. Well, then if you come up with a costume, you could put in the ideas of what you would like, and then eventually get voted on, and then you can now have these costumes under these guidelines that you have to follow, as opposed to we just brought in Imperial Knights as a Jedi costume from the Legacy series. So people come up with ideas for the guidelines, they put it down, someone puts it together, they go, okay, well, even though it's not a Jedi costume in terms of like fabric, it's still a Jedi costume, so then it falls underneath the next category. So you're able to break down the rulings for each costume, and it's very flexible in terms of what new costumes can come into it.
And again, investigate the website. You'll see that for the 501st, they're broken down in what they call CRLs. For the Rebel Legion, they're broken down by different eras and what costumes are on what eras, and there's specific references for each. Sometimes you might not see the references. We're still working in the 501st. There's still some brand new costumes that haven't had CRLs written. And I think it's the same way in the Rebel Legion with certain things that haven't been completely ironed out yet. It's always good to get out there, ask questions about, you know, I'm trying to go for something like this. Can you point me in the right direction? The people are incredibly helpful. I mean, when I started setting this up, I was like in a vacuum before I really got on the boards, and I didn't know what the heck I was doing. I found a guy who showed me how to put on the snaps. I found a guy who showed me how to do the strapping. I found a guy who showed me how to use the rivet tool to rivet something on. Every single piece of the process, somebody's an expert in. Somebody's done it before and is more than willing to help you guide you through the process. So that's the biggest thing I can say is the greatest thing about this club is the people. The people in the club are always willing to help out other people and trying to get you to be your best with whatever Star Wars costume you're trying to do. So it's really been a great experience for me getting this all together. I'll tell you a quick other story if there's no questions right at the moment. You might see if some of you have my card there. I do a Stormtrooper, I do an X-Wing, I also do a Luke costume, and I do the Emperor. That Emperor costume is another good example of talent within the club. There was a guy who calls himself on the boards, I don't even know his real name. His name on the boards is Mr. Bungle. And he came up with the sculpt of Ian McDermott's face as the Emperor. And he came out with a silicone reusable appliance that I've now used about 6 or 8 times to be the Emperor. And you put that on with some special adhesive, and you look like the Emperor. I mean, it's scary. I had kids, when we did the Intrepid last year, I had kids running away from me, like scared out of their mind. There's other talents besides just hard parts and soft parts. There's other talents within makeup that are just beyond anything you've seen even in special effects in movies. Some of these guys are incredibly talented individuals. Some of you might have been here earlier and saw Dan's Admiral Akbar that he uses with the Rebel Legion. Did anybody see that this morning or see it on the table? That was a fan sculpt. Dan sat down and said, do you know what his name was?
Again, I don't know what your real name is.
What was his name on the
It
board?
was like Illuminati or something.
Illuminati?
I don't remember.
Some guy just made a clay thing and said, I'm going to make Admiral Akbar. He did the most amazing representation of Admiral Akbar you've ever seen. It looks 100% real. And Dan was inspired. He's like, I got to do this. I got to do this.
No one else has done it.
Besides,
It was a trap.
Yeah, besides just the fun of doing something that's not as common, a lot of those costumes are a little more expensive and very hot and sweaty, as you can probably attest to. It's also a showstopper, because people, it's a costume you don't see. You see stormtroopers at different events. You don't see a lot of Admiral Akbars or Emperors at different events. So it's kind of a show-stopping.
We also did the
thing.
Intrepid, as you mentioned earlier, and I had to do
Yeah.
the Admiral as the Intrepid.
I'm sorry, what was that?
So didn't he have like the Admiral Akbar cereal?
Yes, he had a cereal box, and that was just for
I
fun.
forgot.
He had the Admiral Akbar cereal. The other thing with Admiral Akbar, I think you were telling me that you just couldn't resist it because of the cultural stuff from
When I was
Robot
doing
Chicken.
the research,
Robot Chicken.
and doing, there's a million, it's a trap, artwork and
It's a crap.
yeah,
On the toilet.
just, but like, like the news, it's
I have
kinda
to, I have to say it.
It's like a pop culture thing, and
Yeah.
I just said, I just have to do it. It's too much fun.
See, you just walked around the Intrepid the whole time. It's a trap!
Yeah, I've
It's
heard
a
it.
trap!
I can't tell you how many times today I've heard, it's a trap.
You can't repel flavor of this magnitude. It's just, that was just such a fun experience for you, Dan. I can see it on your face. It's just great. But that's another whole division within the Rebel Legion and the 501st is people who are just artists who really donate their time and come up with runs of these items that are exclusive to the 501st and Rebel Legion that you wouldn't find anywhere else. You don't find them on eBay or on different replica forums. They pretty much keep them in-house within the 501st. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, everybody that I've met through the Rebel Legion and the 501st, all been super great, very nice, all except for Chris. I'm just joking. I love Chris. But yeah, you make a whole new cosmos of friends. A lot of new contacts, a lot of new friends, which is another rewarding part of it.
I'll tell you one other funny story about my Emperor,
Okay.
because it's funny and it got laughed last year. The reason I did the Emperor was about 2 months before Comic-Con. Does everybody know what Comic-Con is? New York Comic-Con? Of course you do. You wouldn't be here if you didn't know Comic-Con.
Has everybody heard of Star Wars? You know what we're doing up here?
Well, about a year and a half ago, I was scheduled to go to Comic-Con. I was all excited to go to Comic-Con. And of course, I wanted to wear my Stormtrooper outfit. About 2 months before, I fell in my backyard and broke my foot. And I could not walk for about a month. I couldn't even stand on it. And then as it was approaching closer and closer to the convention, I'm like, I'm not going to be able to walk in this. I can't even put on these boots. I'm wearing this cast. It was ridiculous. So just by chance, I happened to see that the guy was making those masks. I happened to get in touch with the guy who makes the cloak. I happened to get in touch with the guy who calls himself Sir Ken, who makes the cane. And within like a month, I quickly whipped together this Emperor costume. And the funniest experience of all is I was walking around through the convention. I think Patrick saw me, didn't recognize me. He's like, who the hell are you? When did you join? And Lou saw me. He's like, I think you're approved. He's the approval guy. He took one look and said, I think you got it. I got to go check for it. I think you got it. And the whole time I'm walking around with the crutch like this, hunched over. And everybody's like, I think it was you, Ian. What'd you say?
Yeah, the yellow.
Come on, help me with my story. What'd you say?
I don't remember what
You're doing the walk so good! Jesus, you're doing the walk so good! And I'm like laughing, going, yeah, I can't freaking walk. I can't, because I can barely walk. But that was my inspiration for that costume. It's just out of necessity, I had to go to Comic-Con, and I had to get a costume that I could actually use with my injury.
What character hobbles? That was it.
Yeah, what character hobbles and can't use one of his, like, the Emperor.
I think Chris gained 1,000 pounds.
The boots were rough, but you can't even see them. And I actually had the cane. I really needed the darn cane. Without the cane, I would have been like, like I don't know what I would have done. I would have been falling over. But that was my own funny little story. I told it last year, so I'm reusing some material.
It's still good. I never heard that story. I remember it. Go through it.
I want to thank everybody for coming in. Do you have any other questions?
I was just wondering, are you guys actually a non-for-profit? Do you actually charge?
We're not a non-for-profit. We're an all-volunteer organization, and we have a very specific relationship. Both the 501st and the Rebel Legion have a very specific relationship with Lucasfilm. That we're allowed to do this. We're allowed to make these cards. We're allowed to do different stuff and use some of Lucas's images in our promotional materials. But we do not accept money. We do it as an all-volunteer basis. And we usually don't collect money, but we do sometimes do something called Shoot a Trooper, where if you go to one of our events, we'll probably be doing this at the Cradle of Aviation on the 16th of June. We set up a big Death Star backdrop. We have the Rebel Legion help out running the table, and we have kids shoot Nerf guns at the Stormtroopers for $1 or for any donation to charity.
Is that how I use my Nerf gun?
What was that?
It's like if I use my Nerf gun?
You can use your own. If you want to bring your own Nerf gun, you
I
can bring
painted
your own.
it to make it look like an actual gun.
Well, they might not let you in there.
He
with it.
painted it, not me.
But you can bring it. You
They
can
might
bring
not
it.
let you.
But we let the kids shoot us with the Nerf gun. We've raised, in the past year, we've raised almost $1,000 doing it. And we donated to a specific group that we're very close to. There's a group in New York called the Pinwheel Project that brings toys and games to kids in hospitals. And we do a lot of hospital visits as well, visiting sick kids in hospitals. So that was the perfect marriage with that organization. And they're a very small, nonprofit organization. We immediately take whatever money we raise from that and just give it to them in name of the 501st and Rebel Legion. So it's really, that's the only time we really accept money. Other times it's just we're there in support of the organization. We don't usually handle any money or donations. That's the only exception to that.
Even for membership?
What was that?
Even for membership?
You gotta be 18 and
You have to be 18.
costume.
And have a costume that's approvable within one of the two groups.
The price of admission is your costume.
Yeah, there's no dues, there's no dues, there's no fees, everything within the club is free. These different promotional items, usually somebody will take up a donation within the club if we want to start printing out some more of these for cons and things. But once you get in the club, it's almost like an addiction. You want to get the hat, you want to get the t-shirts, you want to get all the stuff, and that's all made in-house for a reasonable amount of money. I mean, usually t-shirts run $10 or $12. Ian here is our merchandise officer, who does a lot of our runs and different stuff. Ian, what are the t-shirts usually run, like $10, $12?
Yeah, shirt's about $10, $12, and then
You usually get a good volume discount for different stuff. We usually make stuff within house, and again, we're authorized by Lucas to make stuff, and it's only available within the club, so there is a real exclusivity to getting some of these merchandise, because you can only get it if you're an approved member of the club. And some of us, including myself and Ron here, cannot get enough of it. We always buy every coin, every t-shirt, every hat, everything that come out.
I don't do patches.
You don't do patches. Ian does the patches. Ian's a patch fiend. We make little patches and stuff for different garrisons and stuff that people collect, and Ian is one of our big collectors here. Any other questions? Yes?
Does Lucasfilm help with your costuming? Like, they give give you resources and things?
They don't usually give us resources, but again, they do ask us to do specific events. We did the Today Show about 3 years ago. We were asked because they were having a big event in New York. Lucasfilm said, could you guys send some guys down, some stormtroopers and some other guys down to the Today Show to do this big Halloween thing. Sometimes they ask us to do openings of the movie. Usually with those type of things, again, it's usually in exchange for a donation to charity. They'll make a very large donation to some local charity in exchange for us coming to one of those events. So again, it's a great feeling when you're doing something for the man who created everything, for that organization, and they're also donating something to charity. It's a great feeling to be able to do something and actually give back. With just a few hours of your time, you're doing a lot more with that time.
Chris, can I say, the Blu-ray, they have all the extra features and stuff, and there's a section on there of the Biker Scout, and it's actually incorrect. So people that look like that's not the right undersuit. Oh, they didn't wear that collar, and that's on the actual Blu-ray. So even the Lucas archives, stuff falls apart. Latex falls apart, it rots away. So they kind of piece things back together. But even the fans on the boards say, well, yeah, don't order that one. That's totally not right. It's old. It's 30, 35.
Yeah.
Almost 40 years old. So.
If you happen to be,
I'm feeling my age now. Thanks.
I'm 41. I'm with you.
If you happen to be mechanically inclined, also some people they build R2 units. Did you go to that site?
Well, I'll mention it. There's another splinter group that we partner with a lot called the Astromet.net that does specifically droids, and they do R2 units, R5 units. Ian here is almost completed, right, Ian?
Close.
Close? We have it for the cradle?
About 5
June?
Yeah.
Okay. Ian here is on making the droids. The droids are fully functional droids that look just like they came out of the movie. A lot of guys in the clubs too also gravitate to that, but just keep in mind, and Ian can attest to this, that's $5-6 grand. Easy.
My all-5 droid costs more than my truck.
So
I'm in about 10K already.
He's going to be riding the droid to work.
Yeah. This is why throws my house. And that's another thing too, your family has to be very supportive of this. I have a wife who's not really into Star Wars. My 2 twin girls who are 11 now. I don't really like Star Wars. I dragged them to see Phantom Menace and they hated it. So I failed as a parent with the kids, but they are very supportive because of what we do. Because we do stuff for charity, we do stuff. They come with me to a lot of events. They helped me run a shooter trooper one time at one of the smaller events for a group called the Puppetry Arts Theater. And they got a lot out of it. They said, this is nice, we're doing this for these kids. So even if I'm not giving them anything, imparting any Star Wars love to them, at least I'm imparting to them the love of volunteerism and the love of giving back to the community. And they were really getting into that aspect of it. So I was very pleased with my my parental skills in that way, giving them a little bit of that kind of mentality. Anything else, guys? Anything else specific? Yes?
You seem to be very attentive to detail. I'm just wondering if you have to be bad at aiming to be a stormtrooper.
Yes, and unfortunately, that's the thing. We have so many smart Alex who come up to us at cons and say, "What even wear the armor? The blasters go right through it and stuff." And we're like, we know. Don't remind us. I don't know why we're in this thing. But yes, so the guys within the club, very attentive, huge attention to detail, and you really have to have that to even be part of this club.
Clone troopers are pretty accurate.
Don't even get me started.
And they're colorful too.
Luke can tell you a little. There's a whole clone new thing that we're not allowed to make interpretations of clones.
Oh, right. We're not allowed to make realistic versions of the cartoon versions of the characters.
Like if you have a clone outfit, you can't just paint it up to look like Commander Cody from the cartoon. You actually have to have the one that's shaped like the cartoon.
Like that. Yeah.
And then again, that's the ebb and the flow of the requirements. As things come out and people go, this doesn't look very good, they tighten the requirements a little, and people have to live with that. And if you want to participate in the club, you have to live with those changes because it goes through an entire system of voting, and there's a whole hierarchy within the club to make sure that we're the best representations of these costumes possible. And it goes through a committee, and if that's what they decide, you have to follow those regulations. The stormtroopers are pretty loose. When you go to whitearmor.net, you can go super uber accurate. Mine is of that medium range. Mine's what they call a expert infantryman, which is a little higher than the 501st normal standards. But you can even go for something called centurion level within whitearmor.net, which means from that detachment, they're certifying you that you're like uber movie accurate to the point where you're indistinguishable from something that was on the screen. Yes? Yeah, we have ARC troopers. We have the ones, are those the ones that kind of look like biker scouts?
ARC. No,
Those are ARC.
No, those are ARC. ARC is
Oh.
from Clone Wars.
Clone Wars. I don't know the Clone Wars.
Animated
I'm
or
an
the
old
film.
school Star Wars guy.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I'm with you.
You know
Because they're different.
Yeah. Yeah, and you have to specifically say I'm an ARC trooper on what is it?
ARC.
ARC trooper.
ARC is also, yeah.
There's some guys in the club who do the biker scout with that new animated one that's all like camouflage, which is pretty cool. And you look at them, and they look like they step right out of the cartoon. It's incredible. The attention to detail is incredible.
Yeah, with the new cartoon, there's this whole series of guys making all the armor and the weapons. There's guys making animated. I always think it's funny the descriptions because it's like I'm making an animated gun, but it's a real gun. It's funny to me.
It looks like it came from the animated cartoon.
But yeah, just like all the new kids out there are phenomenal. And that's part of the reason they're changing that ruling because there's just so many more resources out there.
Yeah.
Hopefully by the summer I'll have an animated ARC Echo. And that kit came, it was 107 pieces.
Wow.
Yeah.
And
No
soft
direction.
parts.
That's not the backpack, the boots, or the helmet. It's just all the whole plastic.
And again, that was sculpted by somebody in the club who made a run of making animated ARC clone trooper. And again, it's great to be in the club because you see all the stuff coming out, and I always have to stop myself. Luckily, I have my wife and kids also help me ground myself because I would have every one of these costumes in 2 seconds and spend every nickel I have. I have to have them. But luckily, they ground me and say, "No, honey, you're not spending another grand on a costume. You're done for now. You're done."
I'm surprised they let you have the life-size Han Solo.
Oh, don't even get me started.
He's got Han Solo and Carbonite.
And again, that's thanks to our man Ian here who makes copies of the animated carbonite pieces that you can put on a piece of wood and make in your attic or in your living room. I wanted in the living room, my wife put it on.
He actually had Luke come over and dress up and say, "Put Solo in the attic." That's how movie accurate he was going for.
And building lightsabers is the same way because you build one, you go, I could use another one.
I could use it.
You could always use another lightsaber. Between me and my wife, we just I'll build her one. I'm like, wait, if I'm building you one.
And he's dangerous too because his wife is into this stuff, so he's a double threat, right?
That's the way it works.
Yeah, that's the way it works. everybody enjoyed the talk here. If you have any other questions, please feel free to contact us, ECG, 501ecg.com, 501st.com, and therebellegion.com. I mean, check us out. Try to get involved in the boards. And again, the detachment white armor down is the best one for the stormtroopers if that's what you want to go for. Again, there's other costumes that are a little cheaper to get in, like an Imperial officer, that you can get right in. I think Museum Replicas sells one for $400.
Yes, yes, and it comes with everything.
It's a little
Except for
off
boots.
though, so check the attachments first.
Yeah.
It has to be tailored.
Yeah, a little bit.
They've got a package with boots now.
They do?
Yeah, 600.
Yeah, but they say the boots, I read the boots that they were offering.
They run really, really.
Again, do your research,
non-stop.
guys.
Yeah, they really do. Yeah.
Thank you so much.